Good evening. My name is Brianna Ricks, and today I will be discussing my practicum that I completed with the American Heart Association for my final course in my Master's of Public Health and Health Promotion program at Liberty University. And the title and main topic of my practicum was utilizing the Community Impact Ambassador team to create a healthy food pantry, specifically in Hampton Roads. Next slide. So the overall purpose of my practicum was as follows. First, it was to create a team of community leaders to collaborate to create a healthy food pantry in Hampton Roads, Virginia, as well as to evaluate potential ways to increase recipient receptibility in utilizing a healthy food pantry. So the overall purpose was to really come up with this team that I later termed the Community Impact Ambassador team, to kind of have a grassroots approach when creating the healthy food pantry in Hampton Roads. And the reason I'm considering it to be a grassroots innovation here in the area is because there's not typically many healthy food pantries. I know that there's one in a rural area, which is actually the area that I live and where I'm from in Franklin, Virginia, which is part of Hampton Roads. But it's my understanding that's the only healthy food pantry in the area. So it's important that this practicum really kind of laid the groundwork to create more healthy food pantries in Hampton Roads. And, alongside with creating those healthy food pantries, we have to make sure that those pantries are going to be, are going to be received well from the community. It doesn't make sense to just implement something and the community does not really benefit from it. So the other portion of the practicum was to ensure that whatever was implemented at the Healthy Food Pantry was going to be received well from the recipients. And the overall goals of the practicum were to create a community impact group of at least 10 community leaders with a common goal to collaborate on the beginning steps of the food pantry by the end of August, as well as to create a layout or blueprint on how to implement a healthy food pantry by the end of the month as well. Next slide. So why is there a problem with healthy food pantries in Hampton Roads? So according to a needs assessment completed by American Heart Association's Community Impact Director, the current food insecurity rate in Hampton Roads is actually around 10.4%. And when I was doing my research, that rating is actually very close to the state food insecurity rate here in Virginia. And I think it was pretty close. I don't know the exact number, but I know that it was pretty close to that. And the reason I say that is because even though that 10.4% doesn't seem like that's a lot of people, you have to take into consideration that that 10% of people, those are individuals that do not have food. They either don't, have access to adequate nutritious foods, foods that don't exacerbate their chronic diseases. They may live in a food desert, which is an area that's a certain amount of miles away from a grocery store. So there's a lot of individuals that you have to take into consideration when you look at that rate. And the other thing that's important to note here is according to Feeding America, most of the food that food banks, distribute out to food pantries is food that's received via donations. So that could be donations from me and you. That could be donations from grocery stores. It could be from anywhere. But the important thing to note is that those donations may not necessarily be foods that are of nutritious value. And they actually, even though, we're donating and getting food to people that may not have access to food, it actually may be doing more harm than good. Next slide, please. So the Community Impact Ambassador team was born. It's going to be a group of dedicated individuals to assist with the creation of the Healthy Food Pantry. And it's going to consist of different community leaders of different backgrounds and expertise, with the idea of each person contributing a necessary element to the overall project. So as you can see on my slide, I kind of have, not exactly sure what the name of this, it's like a rope tie. And each, piece of string has a different color. So that's what how I would like to think of the Community Impact team. It's a group of different individuals with different backgrounds. So that would represent the different colors here in the rope. And all of the colors come together and form one rope, which would be one, impactful community team that has one common goal in mind, which is to better the health of the overall community. Next slide. So how did we figure out the information that needed to be figured out for this particular practicum? So I actually did two things. The first thing was I created a questionnaire that was sent out to 25 potential candidates regarding participation in the Community Impact Ambassador team. And the other thing that I sent out was a survey that was given to 48 food pantry recipients who participated in American Heart Association's Heart Healthy Cooking classes, which are actually virtual. Many of those participants actually do frequent food pantries, so they were actually the perfect people to talk to. And the survey asked about potential interactive practices that I actually termed extracurricular experiences that that I thought would be, pretty good to implement at a healthy food pantry. And I thought it would be these would be some things that would be received well from the community. And you'll see more of that on the next slide. You can move to the next slide. All right, so here we have the results. So for both of these, I actually still have some results that have not come back yet. It's not many, it's just a few. For the extracurricular experience responses, the cooking classes run monthly. So I think the last one is still going. So that's about 12 people that I don't have responses from yet. So I do not have those, but I do have responses from 36 people for the extracurricular experience, which you can see on the right. So I'll start with that. So the food tastings actually was the top ranked extracurricular experience that members of the community would like to see implemented at this healthy food pantry if it was a pantry that they frequented. Right after that was I'm sorry, looking at my slide. Right after that was the cooking demonstrations. So that would be something similar to the heart healthy cooking classes that the American Heart Association was doing. Right after that is recipe cards that would be placed in food pantry boxes. So that really wasn't ranked as high. And I feel like that's probably because, I think that just in my experience from working at American Heart Association and as an extern with them, I think that individuals are more likely to be receptive to things that are more interactive. So for me, that would be actually seeing the cooking classes in person, cooking demonstrations, and pantry rearrangement, which would basically kind of be like rearranging it to a grocery store style. Didn't really get too many hits on that. It really wasn't ranked the highest. It actually was the one that was ranked the highest as the third ranking. So it's just interesting to really see what members of the community, which are the members that we're actually going to be serving, it's interesting to see what they really think about what should be implemented. And, since we're serving these individuals, they're the ones that are going to be receiving the services. So it's important that we take into consideration, what they're interested in and what they think will work for them and their other fellow community members. And as well as for the area of expertise, I actually sent out 25 surveys to 25 potential candidates for the Community Impact Ambassador team. I'm running out of time a little bit here, so I'm trying to speed along. So basically, the highest amount of individuals that I reached out to, the majority of them had a background in healthcare, so that's at about 32%, followed by nutrition at 23%. So I was a little surprised by that. Implementing a healthy food pantry, I definitely think that we would need more nutrition. So that's something that I will definitely recommend moving forward with implementing this healthy food pantry. And I just wanted to talk quickly about the other category. So that category consists of individuals that work in the human services field. So whether that's social services or working at a community health center, not a community health center, just a community center in general, those individuals are included in that last category. And lastly, so my conclusion and recommendations, I definitely was able to conclude that healthcare and nutrition were the most common areas of expertise among community leaders. The human service field is an area that is definitely growing, and we should explore when creating this group as well as implementing the healthy food pantry, how to include those individuals. And cooking demonstrations and food tastings were the highest of the experiences that individuals were interested in. So with this information, I definitely recommend partnering with local grocery stores to receive healthier items and produce. when implementing this healthy food pantry, working with other local organizations to identify gaps and fill where necessary based on the ability of the organization that you're working with to do so. And lastly, begin with the pilot pantry to identify your best practices and then implement accordingly to really make sure that you're not making any mistakes and that you're making the greatest impact possible. Thank you.